Good afternoon, everyone. All right, all glory to him. So obviously today we are starting a brand new series called Desire and Fulfillment. Desires and Fulfillment, Desires and Fulfillment. So that's what we're going to be talking about for the next 4 weeks, including today. But before we start talking about desires and fulfillment, I want to wish every father a happy Father's Day. I know you guys had a mini celebration recognizing for all the great that you guys do. So again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers and even any father figures, including for those singles mothers out there that are playing both the role of a father and a mother. Happy Father's Day to you too. And I would not be a good Christian if I didn't give all the praise, all the glory to our loving Father, the Creator, our God, for allowing us to be here today. So with desire and fulfillment. So when we're talking about desire and fulfillment, why this topic was chosen was, I think, self-included too. There's a lot of things that we all desire, right? There's a chase that we're always after. There's something that we're always seeking. And once we get that certain thing that we're chasing, there's a small sense of fulfillment, right? And this could be something simple like, oh, okay, for school, for my high schoolers and college students, okay, I can't wait to graduate high school. I can't wait until I get to college or graduate college. People in the workforce, and maybe, oh, I can't wait until I get that next step. I can't wait until I get that raise or that bonus or I get that promotion. Or even just in life, you think, oh, I can't wait until I get that house. After you get the house, I can't wait until I find a wife, I find a husband. After that, you think, what about kids? So there is a constant chase, and every time we feel like we reach the thing that we desire, the finish line, the quote-unquote finish line moves. Are you guys with me? So that's why we're saying desires and fulfillment. Desires and fulfillment is you get a sense of fulfillment once you accomplish something, but most times that thing is not lasting. Meaning the moment you accomplish the thing that you've been yearning for, that sense of fulfillment kind of goes away. It's like, I want to chase the next thing. What comes after this? We never take the time to actually be fulfilled, or our fulfillment is not long lasting. And that's what this series is going to focus on today. So with every series, we have a theme verse. And the theme verse for this one is, I think we're going to have it up, as Psalms 37, verse 4. It says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the requests of your heart. So this is the theme verse, and as we get deeper into the series, it will start to make sense, all the things that we're going to talk about today. Everybody with me? So theme verse, memory verse is Psalms what? 37:4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. All right, we're on the same page. So for the 4 next weeks, before we get into the thick of what the series is, the 4 next weeks are going to be broken down into 4 parts. These 4 parts are going to be, week 1 today is God's design for desire. Week 1 is going to be God's design for desire. The second one, we're going to talk about love. What love means. And again, all these will start to make sense once we start this week, and then we're going to build it on in the following weeks. The third week is creativity and ambition. And the final week, we're going to talk about finding balance. I know these are just words up there right now, but they will start to make sense as we get closer into the series. So when we're talking about God's design for desire, that's today's lesson. God's design for desire. When you guys think desire, what do you think of? What is, just shout it out loud. What is desire to you? Wants. Things that you want, things that you're looking for. And then, like I said earlier, whenever you desire something, all the drive comes chasing after desire. You chase, and then because for the sense of desire, remember, there's an end goal. Desire, we want something. The end goal is like we want to be fulfilled when we get that thing. And we're trying to address the problem why our fulfillment is not lasting. Because if you think about the word fulfillment, it shouldn't be conditional, right? It shouldn't be like, I'm full. That should be like long-lasting, not like I'm full, okay, I'm fulfilled. Now on to the next thing so I can be fulfilled again. I'll find the next thing so I can be fulfilled again. That's kind of like in a cycle, a vicious cycle that most of us are in right now. We desire something, we get it, okay, I'm fulfilled. The next day, okay, this thing is not what it seems, on to the next one. Like, I'll tell you guys a story. The first time I got a car, well, not got a car. No, I didn't buy it by myself. It was a hand-me-down. It was like from generation to generation hand-me-down type of a car. It was a car that I think my sister drove when she came, and then when my dad came to this country, my dad drove it, and then my other sister drove it, and then my other sister I have after that, she said, I'm not going to drive it, and then it came to me. It was a 1995 Toyota Tercel. They don't even make it anymore. The nickname we gave it was the Stallion, because it literally had 1 horsepower. Like, it moves very, very slowly. But the day I got into that car, the day my dad gave me the keys, I passed my, provisionals, right? I got so I'm able to drive by myself with the curfew. I think that I was 17 or 18 at the time. You couldn't tell me nothing. It could be a Lambo next to me. I was like, my car is better than that car because it was my own. Because I've been taking a bus is a struggle, bro. Like, it's tough. Waiting for the bus, not being able to go to where you want, whatever. It was like taking a toll on me, and I was going to school at the time. When I got that car, bro, I'm talking about like going to the car wash every week, making sure vacuum cleaned. It didn't have a radio system. I went out of I'm pretty sure like the radio system I put in cost more than the car. But there's nothing you could have told me that I was the man. I was driving around, I was like, wow, pedestrians, crazy. Like, couldn't be me, right? But then a few months pass away, I'm not taking as much care of the car. And then I'm not enjoying, okay, if I go over 50 miles per hour, the wheels start shaking. You start noticing the things you don't appreciate because that desire of a car has now been fulfilled. That want of a car was fulfilled. Now that it's been fulfilled, I started looking for the next thing. Now I started looking, I remember I told you, when I first got the car, a Lambo could pull up next to me. I was like, you stay, I'm going to drive this show. And now a Nissan or Toyota pull up next to me. I was like, damn, that kind of looked nice. You see, now the desire was no longer about the car. It was about a better car. I want something better. And then, a couple of years later, the Stallion, may she rest in peace, she was no longer functioning. I got a new car, the same thing. When I first got it, I was like, oh, this is an amazing car. I got a Toyota Camry because, it's in my DNA to get Toyota because I'm Habesha. But, the appreciation that I have for that new car kind of goes down a little bit. So, this thing, while we talk about God's design for desire, there's something called dopamine that plays a big role, right? And PSA, public service announcement, I am not a person that's deep studied about dopamine. I'm not an expert, so if I say something wrong, please call me out on it, nor do I claim to be. But just for the purpose of this series, we're going to look at what dopamine's role is in our lives, especially when it comes to desire and fulfillment. So we can't talk about desire and fulfillment without talking about dopamine. And the way dopamine works is it's a reward hormone. So when you accomplish something, when you, I think I have the definition up, it's known as the feel-good hormone, right? It gives you a sense of pleasure, and it motivates you to do more. And as you're feeling pleasure, that dopamine is released, and it feels good. So, and because the way we are wired, that once we get that dopamine rush, once we get a certain release of dopamine in our brain that's released, we're always seeking for that whatever activity, whatever thing that we got, to reward us with more dopamine. That's just how we're wired. So the things that release dopamine, things like eating, survival, reproduction, so sex, things like that necessarily may not be good for you. For example, junk food, things like sugar, right? They release a high amount of dopamine. That's why people like get addicted to it. That's why people's like, oh, the more I eat sugar, that thing is released, because you're hardwired to do that. You eat more of it. And even like it says over there, from evolutionary standpoint, it is something that rewards you, and you seek out behaviors that release dopamine. So you see, it goes hand in hand with the desire and fulfillment. You see, now we're seeking, you're desiring something. So those things that release that dopamine is things that we are searching for, to get that feeling of the, I guess the desire is like the behavior, and the fulfillment is that actual release of dopamine that takes place in our brain. And things like eating, socializing, achieving goals, it has a lot of purposes, but for the purpose of this series, again, we're just going to look at from the scope of pleasure and rewards, because it's considered the reward pathway or something. And if you want to do, like, this is a simple like Google search, you're more than welcome to do your own research on what dopamine does. So this thing that is in our brain, we're hardwired. When we think about it, like if it leads to addiction, if it leads to like it's triggered by bad things, we question, is like, what's going on? Like, is there something wrong with us? Absolutely not. The way we're programmed, right? Dopamine, this is part of God's perfect, intricate creation. So the way we hardwire, this is the fact that we have dopamine. If you step back and think about it, it is part of how meticulous, how careful, how perfect we are created in God's image. Because think about it. This is not something you have to take medicine for. Automatically, like if you're a healthy human being and you do the things you're supposed to do, God gave you something that gives you that little release of dopamine, that happiness. Your body produces that. You didn't do anything to deserve it. You didn't do anything. God made you that way. But somehow we find different ways to use it. I'll give you an example. God gave us hands, right? God gave us eyes. God gave us taste, the five senses. We can hear. We're created in His image. But we use those same five senses to defile ourselves. Are you guys with me? The same thing with the dopamine, is, with that thing that God put in place for us, because He is so loving. He is so caring. He say, my children, I know that you're seeking to do good. So when you do good, I'm going to give you a sense of like something that just your body produces. I don't think you guys know how amazing that is. And it's not something that happened by chance. Saint Basil the Great. Saint Basil the Great, he says this: do not say, this happened by chance. While this came to be of itself, and all that exists, there's nothing disorderly, nothing indefinite, nothing without purpose, nothing by chance. How many hairs are on your head? God would not forget one of them. Do you see how nothing, even the smallest thing, escapes the gaze of God? I think the slide is up there for if you guys want to capture it. The quote from Saint Basil. So this tells you everything that happens. It's not like, I stopped believing like things are coincidences like a long time ago. Things just don't happen. Things is like, oh, it fell into my lap. No, man. God is always playing a role. There's a role that He played in that thing happening. And whenever I hear about like anything disorder, whatever, there was a Christian, like this Christian comedian. He was talking about like how the creation of the world, like the creation of the world, what does everybody like in the science world thinks what? That happened through the Big Bang, right? The Big Bang Theory. And what he says is like, I don't know about you guys, but if God clapped his hands, like that would make a big bang. It's like just a theory. So nothing happens by just mere coincidence. Nothing happens just because chaos was ensuing in the world and you just happen to get something. No. Everything happens for a reason, and everything that happens, God has a role to play in it. So the same thing with the way we are wired, the same thing the way with the program, with the same we talked about, we receive these 5 senses, right? The same thing for the purpose of the series, dopamine, that is part of God's perfect, intricate design for his children. So now coming back to dopamine, this is something like we talk about senses, we've ruined. I say we've ruined it because God intended this for us to reward, that feeling of reward, that feeling of fulfillment, for that to take place when we're doing something righteous, when we're doing something good, when we're doing something holy. But like most things, we have found a way to cheapen it. We have found a way to get a shortcut or find a cheaper way to get that little dopamine release. Right? And the perfect example for this is the people of Corinth. Now, in the New Testament, St. Paul, in the book of Acts, chapter 18, verse 9, he went and taught the people of Corinth. And it reads, "Now the Lord spoke to Paul in the night by a vision. Do not be afraid, but speak. Do not keep silent, for I am with you, and no one will attack to hurt you. For I have many people in this city." Now, St. Paul, God is telling this to St. Paul to go and teach to the people of Corinth, the land of Corinth. So St. Paul eventually starts, I think he stayed there for almost 2 years, a year and some change. He taught. And the thing about the people of Corinth, they received the word of God, the gospel, amazingly. So you fast forward to the book of Corinthians, right? Now, as you know, when St. Paul usually writes the letters, that means something had gone wrong. If he wrote you an epistle, something had gone wrong, right? I think there's been videos that I've seen on my timeline where it's like, what would St. Paul say if he was to write an epistle to America today? And it's like a lot of them were hilarious, like, "Dear people of America, y'all not going nowhere." Like, because we are so corrupt, we are so just far away from God according to what the word says. So again, think about it. Like the people of Corinth, St. Paul stayed there for about 2 years teaching them. They received the word very well, and then later on they're getting a letter that means something went wrong. There's something that went wrong somewhere along the way. So what happened was, this was a rich city, and it was full of people that were wise. Rich and wise. And those people, like I said, accepted the word of God. But just like most things, when God gives us something good, we find a way to cheapen it. We find a way to somewhat mess it up. And what happened was, in the commentaries, John Chrysostom told us that even the devil, he saw how great the city was becoming. And it pissed him off because it was a wealthy city and it was a wise city, and he wanted to tempt those people by going and ruining it. You see, this is how the devil does. When he sees something good, when he sees something going right in your life, he's like, no, I got to mess that up. I need to find a way to get him away from the righteous path that you want. I need to get in her way so she may stumble and fall back into the side of darkness. That's how he operates. So he saw the people of Corinth. And what he decided to do was, like I was saying, St. John Chrysostom, he said, he saw how the devil, he saw how well they received the God, and when Paul was teaching him, and that just ate him up. It did not sit well with him. So what's the best way to dismantle any country, any kingdom, any people? What do you guys think? Like, what are it's blank and blank. Divide and conquer. That's literally what he did to them. Hence why they received the word of God. So the people that received the word of God, that received the wisdom, they received the wealth through God, now started boasting about those things, started being proud of those things. Yes, I'm wise. Yes, we have all this money. And that's why they received the letter from the Apostle St. Paul. And then he writes to them, and the way he humbles them is actually so satisfying to read. If you get a chance, read the book of Corinthians. So what he tells them is, if you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 26 to 31. And like the way St. Paul does it is so humble. He said, brothers and sisters, it's like, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many of you were influential. Not many of you were noble of birth. He's just telling them that before God came to your life, you were no one. Like, relax, like, calm down. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of the world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are. So no one may boast before him. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us the wisdom from God. That is our righteousness, holiness, redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let one who boasts, boast in the Lord. It was like a good reality check for them. He was like, he went up to them and he told them, hey, you were nobody before God came along. If you're going to be boastful, if you're going to say, oh, I have all this pride, I have all this wealth, I have all this wisdom, if that's the thing that you want to be boastful about, but make sure you also boast the person that gave it to you, which is God. Because they were nobody. Earlier in the book of Acts, like I told you, he said God chose those people. He said, I want you to stay here and teach. St. Paul executed that. He taught them, and now they're back here. You see, what we tend to do is God gives us a perfect gift. God gives us a perfect gift. But somehow, some way, we find a way to cheapen it. God gives us a perfect gift, but we find a way to cheapen it. Make it cheap. Like, just find the easy way out. Has anybody here ever ordered from wish.com? I have been a victim. I think they're the biggest scamming country in the world, because this was when I was in college. So when I was in college, I put together my tens and tens of dollars, and I ordered this one sweater. And that joint came, and it was like a sweater that I really liked. I was like, oh, this is about to be tough. Everybody about to be looking at me, driving in my 1995 Tercel with the hoodie on, right? It came. I wore it one day. I put it in the washer. I lie to you not, I found it in different pieces after it came out the washer. Meaning, the material that I got it from was cheap. I think that's what we tend to do. I think today it's not Wish anymore. It's like Shein, right? Shein is like the big thing right now. Oh, everybody's doing this right now. It's okay. It's cost effective. But that is what we tend to do. We tend to. No, it's okay. You guys can shop at Shein. I'm sorry. I feel like I struck a nerve there. A lot of people are like, oh no, it's fine. But the idea that I'm trying to portray across is we find a way to cheapen it. God gives you a perfect gift. He gives you a reward system for you to do something good, but we go around it. We don't want to do the work. So we seek the cheap way out. We seek the cheap way out. And the thing is, when it comes about taking the cheap way out, let's talk about some of the things, right? Let's say going out. By the way, just let's go off tangent for a little bit. Why do we say let's go out? What does going out mean? They say every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. I'm not a saint, but I have a future. But with that being said, I used to go out. I used to be in the scenes that I should not be in back in the day. And when people say, let's go out, we're going out, it's kind of to hide the thing that they actually want to do. Because it would be tough for somebody to say out loud, I want to go get drunk. I want to spend this amount of money. I want to be in a lustful situation. That's what we're saying. But let's go out. It sounds it sounds cuter, you know? It's like when we say let's go out, it's not as bad now. Right? Don't deny yourself. Don't deceive yourself. 1 John 1:8, it reads, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not us. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not us. You see, when we try to cover up those little things, saying not make it sound as bad, we're deceiving ourselves. But going back to the dopamine, right? Going out, and usually the best way to do it is drugs and alcohol, right? And even scientifically, the way why we get that release of dopamine when we're doing those things is because it causes a chemical imbalance in your brain, right? And the sad thing is, with the way this dopamine is, when we're talking about these things like drug and alcohol, like it makes it imbalanced, and then remember what we said? You're always seeking the behavior, right, that gives you that dopamine release. Are you guys with me? You're always seeking that behavior. So you go out, right? You're whatever drugs you do or whatever amount of alcohol you drink, you get that little bit of dopamine now. Next time, that behavior you seek to release dopamine is that. It leads to addiction, pornography, masturbation. The thing that God has saved sacred when it comes to sex for marriage, we find a way to get the cheaper means of that. And again, that leads to addiction. There's been a different period, like you can read researches what pornography and masturbation has done to people. You can see how they don't enjoy being with their wife anymore. They don't enjoy being with their husbands. They're not satisfied with the one they're together with for the rest of their life because they have tainted and they have exhausted their dopamine release through pornography and masturbation. And again, these are worldly things. And you know how you know this is worldly? It's so crazy. Like, you guys know when you watch movies, the ratings, right? You guys, like, it's rated G means what? Everybody can watch it, right? Rated PG is what? Like, everybody should watch it, but like with parental guidance, right? And then we start getting a PG-13, right? Under 13, people under 13, they should not watch this. And then we get to the heavy hitters, the rated Rs. Those are the premium channels, where violence, sex, and everything is just expected. I want to know who was the person that made it okay for everyone over the age of 17 to be able to watch sexual content, to be able to watch violence, to be able to watch cursing, all these things. Who was the person that dictated that after 17, you're fine, you can do this? There's nothing in the Bible that tells us that. Nowhere in the Bible have I found, okay, after 17, you can watch all the sexual content that you would like. This is how you know this is from the world. This is how you know this is another means of getting that cheap fix of dopamine. So, and I think the biggest one, I would want to consider it a silent killer, but it's not even silent anymore. It's your phones. People are hooked to the phones. There was a video I saw the other day, especially the future generation. There's kids, like little 3-4-year-olds, when they get their phone taken away, they are losing their minds, full-on tantrum. Because what they know is, parents, I know it's hard, but like they give their parents the phone so that like they can at least be entertained and the parents can have a peace of mind. I'm not trying to blame the parents, but the effect that it's have on the children is immense. Because now they're chasing, when you watch a video, when you watch something funny, it gives you pleasure, right? And because you get pleasure, the dopamine is released. But the more you do it over and over, it becomes cheaper and cheaper, so you have to do more. That's why, like, if you look at your phone, the hours you spend on your phone, and even all these algorithms, all the apps now, there is TikTok, There's YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. All these videos are what? They promote what type of videos? Do they like long explain? No. These are like 30 to a minute videos where people are just, they watch it, they get it, and then they just keep scrolling. You just keep scrolling. Before you know it, you're just there for hours just scrolling on God knows what. So that seek of instant gratification is leading us down the wrongest paths. And we're talking about still desire and fulfillment, right? Desire and fulfillment. So if we're seeking this instant gratification, there's a path that follows. So what happens is instant gratification is the same thing as short-sightedness, and then short-sightedness is misalignment. Misalignment from the what? We're going to get into that later, but it's misalignment from with the things that God desires for you. And when I say short-sightedness, I don't even want you to think about instant gratification. There's two parts. With short-sightedness, there's one, what? The instant gratification. You seek something, you want to get the cheapest way of doing it, and you get that instant gratification, you move on, and a few minutes later, that same hunger is brought back within you. But when I say short-sightedness, it can also mean your entire life here on earth. Because in the grand scheme of things, when you're thinking about eternity versus the 70 or 80 years that we're here, this is a very short-sighted goal. There's people and this is self-included, that worry about oh my God, how much do I have in my 401? How much do I have in my retirement? The Social Security going to be something that I can benefit? These things, they're worries, they're good, but again, it may seem like a long-term goal because you're like, oh, when I turn 65, way down the road, I'm not saying don't prepare for retirement, but I want you to guys to kind of start seeing that's a very short-sighted goal. That's a short-term goal. Because, people say, what's your short-term, in the next 3 to 6 months, the next year, 5-year, 10-year plan, right? The 10-year plan is supposed to be the long-term goal. I'm telling you now, even until you reach your, let's say, with the grace of God, you guys have reached the age of 100. Everybody here lives to 100. Through the grace of God, even planning that far ahead to 100 is a very short-sighted goal because 100 years is nothing compared to eternity. Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? So, and the problem with this seeking instant gratification and short-sightedness is you become numb to things that you used to enjoy. You become numb. It takes a lot for you now to get that release. Same thing, this is how drug addicts, whatever, start out, by the way. Because they're not seeking, you have to increase the dosage over and over and over again for you to reach that initial high that you got, right? But that means the things that used to make you happy, the things that you used to find joy in, it's no longer enough. The things that God has surrounded you with is no longer enough. You see the problem with that? I had a friend of mine, very, very good friend of mine. He was like, you know what, man? So I'm going to do a dopamine fast. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to, social media, I'm going to delete everything. Because he found himself scrolling a lot, just scrolling nonstop. And when you go off of one app, the next app has the same feature, right? Like we talked about earlier. He said, I'm going to do no sugar. So even when I drink my coffee, just straight black, even maybe a creamer if necessary. So he made drastic changes. And believe it or not, I saw drastic changes in him. Because after Sundays, after church here, after we break down and everything goes up, I have a weekly routine, which is I go home, take a little nap, and then I meet up with my boys to have board game nights, right? And that person always comes to those board game nights. So what happened was he went, this is week 2, week 3 of his dopamine fast. So we were playing Monopoly. You guys know how to play Monopoly. I have never seen him so ecstatic when somebody landed on his property. I have never seen him so happy when he rolled a number that he wanted to roll. Because why? He's withheld that dopamine, so the smallest things is giving him joy. The smallest thing is giving him that release that he seeks. It's no longer a thing that he has to do over and over and over again. And that's what I want you guys to pay attention to. If you numb yourself through the cheap means of dopamine, the perfect way that God has created us, then the things that we're surrounded by, we're not going to be as graceful for us. We're not going to have as much gratitude. It's not going to be enough. He was like, he was like, I'll step out there. I was like, man, it's a beautiful day. When was the last time we said, wow, thank God for this beautiful day? You know? So again, don't find cheap ways to get short-term gratification, instant gratification. So now comes the question. We talked about all the desire. Now we're going to get into how do we make sure we get fulfillment that we're all so yearning for. And the first thing is align your desires with God. Align your desires with God. What's the theme verse for this series? Psalms what? And it reads what? Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So now coming back here, we're talking about align the things that you desire to God. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? So we're going to look at two stories. These are pretty well-known stories, but the first one, we're going to look at someone that did not align his desires with God. The second one we're going to look at is someone that fully put all the desires of the desires of his heart in God. The first one is Jonah. Everybody knows Jonah. Jonah, for those of you that don't know, he was a prophet in the Old Testament. What is he known for? He's the guy that got swallowed up by the big fish. Everybody with me? So actually, when that first started, God told him, because he's a prophet, he said, go and preach to the people of Nineveh. But what did Jonah do? Yeah, he actually, the scripture says, he went the opposite direction. Not only did he say no, he said, I'm going to go the opposite direction and watch in what God commanded me. And then he got on the ship. When he got on the ship, what happened? There was a huge storm that came. A huge storm that came. See, this is what happens. When you don't align your desires with God, usually chaos follows. And that story, because he didn't follow what God told him, he's a prophet. He wanted to preserve his word. If you read the book of Jonah, it's a short read. He wanted to preserve his word because at the end of the day, he knew that God would forgive them. He said, I want my word to have meaning, therefore, I'm just going to go the opposite direction. The moment he got on that ship, storm. And the people were panicking. They're like, yo, what's going on? What's going on? And Jonah was like, it's me. Like, he recognized it. I'm the problem. Throw me over ship. The storm will be calm. This is what happens when we get the cheap dopamine. It's chaos. You're not getting fulfillment. You're getting a sample size of what could be. You guys know Costco samples, right? Who here has been to Costco? Anytime I go to Costco, bro, I'm walking around making sure I get all the samples. That's what you're getting when you're doing that cheap aspect of dopamine. Because you go around, they give you a little toothpick, or if it's like the vitamin drink, they give you a small cup. You just get a little tease of what it is, but not the whole thing. And then I said, you see, that was someone that did not follow God's desire. The second one, we're going to talk about our patron saint, St. Paul. In the book of Philippians, he writes the backstory, the book of Philippians, when he's writing this, St. Paul, he's writing this from prison. Mind you, he is writing this from prison. He was under house arrest. He couldn't go anywhere. Like, he was allowed to get visitors, but mind you, he's writing this imprisoned. And he said, not that I speak in regard to need, nor, and it's Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 through 12. Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased, I know how to be abound, meaning I know how to be rich, I know how to be poor. He's saying he's been that. Everywhere in all things I've learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer in need. He's saying, I've seen all these things, but the first one is like, I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. See, that is what true fulfillment looks like, regardless of what's around you, regardless of like, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, you're content. Something goes wrong, you're content. And by the way, right after this, it's one of the most famous verses everybody quotes, right? Philippians 4:13 is what? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? That's what he's saying. I'm able to do this, I'm able to be content because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Imagine, like, if I'm in prison, and he's writing to the people of Philippians, guiding them. And if you read the book of Philippians, it's with so much joy, with so much happiness. I was like, is this guy crazy? He starts off like by saying joy and peace to the people. And he's even thanking them for like sending letters or sending him things while he was in prison. Mind you, he is in prison. That is the type of fulfillment we should all seek. Everybody with me? Everybody with me. So, we compare those two. One, it was Jonah. You see what happens? Chaos follows when you don't align yourself with God's desire. And then the next thing we saw, St. Paul, he was transformed, right? The road to Damascus. That's why this is called Road to Damascus. Because it's on his road to Damascus where God blinded him and he transformed him from Saul to Paul to become one of the greatest figures in our faith. So, some solutions that we can start if we have caught ourselves in this cycle of instant gratification, if we found ourselves just finding the cheapest mean of getting that dopamine release, some solutions. The first thing, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? You guys have heard that saying? It's like, in theory, it sounds so simple, but it's not easy because not a lot of us do it. It requires consistency. The smallest amount of consistency is what's going to get you, and that is pray without ceasing. And this is found in 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Pray without ceasing. Now, there was a certain monk, and a young man came to him. And he asked him this, and as I was reading the story, like it's so beautiful because the different sayings of the Desert Fathers or the people that have lived, the hermit life, we think they're like, oh, they're so much better than us, but they struggle with the same things that we do. So follow along the story. This is a conversation between a monk and a young man. He says, why are my thoughts always inclined to defilement? So they give me no rest even for an hour, and my soul is troubled. I'm reading this, I'm like, I could have wrote this. How many times have we wanted that thought to leave our heads? How many times is it that, like, we're constantly thinking of things that defile us? The monk responds, if the demons inspire thoughts in you, do not give in to them. It is their nature to tempt constantly. Even though they never leave this off the temptation, they cannot, keyword, they cannot force you to sin. It depends on your will to listen to them or not to listen. And then the young man responds back to him. He said, what should I do? I am weak and the passion is conquering me. See, passions is some things that we're addicted to. Usually with things that are incorporated with dopamine, the bad side of it is it leads to addiction. So think of the things that you're addicted to. Think of these things that you feel like they have a hold on you. And the monk responds to him saying, guard against them, and when they begin to speak to you, do not answer them, but pray to God to have mercy on me. Recognize that these passions do not have dominion over you. That's why the solution that I said is pray what? There's a 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Does it just say, just pray when you can? Pray unceasingly, meaning non-stop you pray. Because like the conversation between the man and the monk, what happened? He says, you have to pray unceasingly because the demons, the enemy, they're going to tempt you unceasingly. That's their job. Again, the beautiful part is all they can do is tempt you. All they can do is get you so close, but you have to be the one that decides to step in. And in our daily prayer, there's a Thanksgiving prayer that we're supposed to do daily, like and this within Orthodox. If you can have the next verse, this is like a part of that. It says, "For you are he who gave us authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and every power of the enemy." Whenever I struggle, I'm telling you guys, like I struggle just like you guys, probably more than most of you, because I know the type of sinner I am. Whenever I'm stuck with certain passions, things that I just can't over, this is what I refer to. I have power over these things. God has given me authority over whatever the evil spirits were trying to throw at you, at me. And then, for those of us that say, you know what, okay, I get unceasing prayer, meaning I want to pray nonstop, but I don't know how. What am I supposed to do? Abba Mercurius, Abuna Mercurius, he was asked how we should pray. And he puts it in such a loving term and simple term, and I think a lot of us miss the point sometimes. He says like this: "There is no need at all to make long discourses. It is enough to stretch out one's hands and say, 'Lord, you will, as I know, have mercy.' And if your conflict grows fiercer, you say, 'Lord, help.' He knows very well what you need, and he will show his mercy." Like when you think about prayer, it doesn't have, like, yes, it's a beautiful thing. It's a means of communication. It's a means of you talking to your all-loving Father. But if you feel like you don't know how to pray, this is enough. Just, "Lord, have mercy on me. I'm struggling with this." And then it says, "Seek help," and God will give you what you're searching for. But most of us, we try to do it on our own. You see, just like earlier, when we talk about what Paul said to the people of Corinth, he said, "Remember who you were before God came and you heard the word of God." Don't forget that. The same way here, we turn to him. Without him, the evil spirits, whatever, they're going to have their way with us. They're going to trample us. If you think you can overcome these temptations from evil spirits, from the enemy, you're by yourself, good riddance. Good luck, honestly. I wish you all the best. But with God, it's because even if we go back in the Thanksgiving prayer, he said, "You who gave us the authority." He is the one that gave us authority. We did not fight this battle by ourselves and overcome it. He gave us authority over those serpents and the scorpions and every power of the enemy. So, one solution is praying without ceasing. The next one is look around in the house of the Lord. Look around in the house of the Lord. What do I mean by that? We're in the house of the Lord. We're in the temple, a church. You come here and you look around the people. There was a quote I saw. It said, "Your life as a Christian should make non-believers question their disbelief in God." Are you guys with me? Your life as a Christian should make non-believers question their own disbelief. Meaning somebody should look at you as a Christian and say, there has to be a reason. Like, there's no way that, like, he's just doing this or she's just doing this just because. That's for the non-believers. But for everybody here, that for the believers, for those that have been accepted into the house of the Lord, we just had another one, the baptism today, right? Keep him in your prayers. So what is his Christian name was what? May God be with him and keep him in your prayers. But for the believers that are in here, look at the saints. Look at the clergy members. Look at the servants. That should make you question. It's like they're not getting paid. They're not just doing this off vibes. They're not just doing this just because. There has to be something that makes them keep coming back to the church. There is something that keeps dragging them back in the church. There's something that makes them wake up early in the morning to do liturgy. There's something that, especially for this church, that makes everyone come on Saturdays, make sure this is set up, and then stay after service, make sure this is all broken down. When we're thinking about the servants of the church, there has to be something, right? We have to question it a little bit as you look within the people in the house of the Lord. Because, again, we're talking about desire and fulfillment. Now we're getting to the fulfillment part. There is a sense of fulfillment that you receive when you're serving. And that fulfillment is like not the cheap one. It's not the one you just do instantly. It doesn't come easy. But the way to see the fruits is at least you can learn from your brothers and sisters that are in the church. So you keep coming to church. One of the greatest advice that I've ever gotten, even in the times where I told you, like, I was struggling with different things back in the day, like pre-COVID, I had just graduated college, like our father and even some of my brothers, at that time, what they told me was, regardless of what it is, do not stop coming to church. I can testify to you that is 100% of the reason why I'm here today. Glory be to God. And so, like I said, these things should not just when you come to church, like, be vigilant. Yes, you're supposed to be in the house of the Lord, but like even like during break time when we're walking around, like see, oh, like, man, look at how happy people are. Like, look how everybody's interacting with one another. And even when we come to like announcements every week, we say, what's the one thing we say? If this is your first time, welcome, welcome. Because truly, there's so much joy that we receive, or everybody receives, when a new person comes, and we see new faces every time. So, in regards to some of the solutions that we should do, the first one is pray, or how we could align our desires to God is prayer without ceasing. And then the second one is looking around in the house of the Lord. So to conclude, dopamine, right? And that's what we're going to talk about this whole series. Next week we're going to talk about the aspect of love, and the next thing is ambition and motivation, and then finding balance. We're going to conclude in week 4. But when it comes to dopamine, it is a perfect way we are all created. It is part of God's intricate, perfect creation. It's not a flaw. It's not something for us to take advantage of. It's not a loophole. So this different means of dopamine that we're trying to achieve, we need to cut that out. And the way we do that is we align our desires through Christ. And some of the solutions, there's many, but for the sake of today, what we talked about is nonstop prayer. Pray unceasingly. And then the next thing is looking around into the house of the Lord. And I'll conclude with this. I saw this quote. I thought it was pretty amazing, and it's relative to what is today. If you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will forever live its life thinking that it's stupid. If you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will forever live its life thinking that you're stupid. It's stupid. But the same way, if you try to achieve fulfillment through cheap avenues of dopamine, you will never reach the true fulfillment. So next week we'll talk about love and relationships, and just a little bit about relationships. But keep this in mind. Call for action. Call for action. Mini homework assignment. I want everybody to, whether you have your notebook or your phone, for next week to think of cheap ways that you are trying to get dopamine. And I don't even want you to just stop it or whatever. Yeah, you should stop it, but identify it. Sit with yourself and identify. And let's all come back together next week. Glory be to God.